Hey everybody, welcome back to Health Founder OS number 3. My name is Croom Lawrence. I'll be your host today. Great to have you back. We're tracking healthcare commercialization in the context of AI trends that are totally freaking everybody out. And today we're going to talk about how AI is rewriting the rules of healthcare commercialization. The last time we spoke, it was literally during the World Cup. Everybody was super excited. That was only about a month ago. And now things have changed. I'm sure you've heard about Grokbot that is now superseding all the incredible things we had with Hermes, which superseded all the incredible things we had with OpenClaw. But the rules and compliance and safety requirements in healthcare are such that we have to be careful, and we need to be testing into how do we grow healthcare businesses in the right way. And so when we talk about commercialization, at the very core of it, we are talking about how do we sell more in less time at a higher margin, safely and compliantly. And of course, in healthcare, we're always talking about the triple mission. We're always leading with our passion. It's what we think about first thing in the morning, which is bringing better care to more people at lower cost. And that is what this is all about. But we still have to run our businesses at the same time. And so today we're going to be talking about healthcare and AI and all these things that are hitting everyone's desk right now. AI is everywhere, but the key theme is that the harness is missing. So everyone is working out of Claude, working out of OpenAI. You may be experimenting with Hermes. Now you're on Grokbot. Those are phenomenal harnesses. But if you're superpowering individuals without coming around one single brain, it is doomed to create a lot of chaos. If you have marketing silos, if you have different legal opinions going back and forth, if you have LLM words, which is my LLM plan is better than your LLM plan, it's totally crazy and it makes no sense. And it just leads to drift, it leads to confusion, and it leads to friction, right? And loss of traction as we try to launch our businesses. And so these are the things we've been working with the last couple of years at HealthFounderOS, and then working through, what is the root cause of these problems, and then how do we safely and compliantly get AI and get commercialization unified and embedded in healthcare businesses, whether it's biopharma, longevity clinics, whether it's a rheumatology clinic, whether it is life extension, it is cell therapy, doesn't matter. Any regulated business in healthcare is struggling to figure out not only the operational efficiencies you can gain that come embedded with a big Epic, or what are other nimble ways you can use just classic marketing, classic sales, make that better and drive better outcomes. And that's what we're going to talk about in this very session. So stick with me. Healthcare commercialization is probably getting harder. In other words, even though the FDA the last year or two has been, pretty friendly, right? Just yesterday, there was a great new blood test that came out for early detection of Alzheimer's that was 90% accurate, picking up the tau. That's incredible, right? And there's new oncology therapies, cell therapies, all the time coming at FDA. There's great pipelines of drugs and treatments coming out. However, productization itself has never been easier. So all of us are productizing like mad. I try to launch a new business every single weekend. Why? Just to try to see what happens. So on Grokbot last weekend, I spun up a new cognitive testing company called Baseline Cognitive Test. Before that, I launched VascuMind. Before that, I launched Accurist. These are all in the cognitive space, which is of particular interest to me. But it's amazing how fast you can get something in market. That's not enough. There still has to be sales, relationships, influence, trust. That total quality package is what's needed to get launches in motion, not to mention budget. There was a time where we focused on how little can we spend to get a product commercialized and in market. And we probed the bottom of the market, and you can do more now than ever before to get products launched. However, there are minimum thresholds of effectiveness, and we're going to unpack that as well. So let's keep going into our slide set here. So, our role is to help clients sell more in less time at a higher profit. So if you unpack that, you're thinking about healthcare as a business. It is a requirement. You can't just pretend the business end isn't important. There has to be margin. There has to be retained earnings. It can't be all altruistic, even though we've devoted our lives to helping get great science to market. And so we talk specifically about more qualified sales pursuits, faster insight to action, better targeting and prioritization among physician targeting and patient targeting, stronger sales and follow-up execution, more efficient content and campaign development, higher conversion and reduced leakage, another leaky bucket, leads falling out of the funnel, better use of commercial intelligence, safer, more compliant AI-enabled execution. In other words, the whole point is that there are lots of use cases within the healthcare business that we can press on, that we can improve. And essentially, once we've mapped the entire health organization, we can layer in the use cases, the right data and analytics and algorithms to make these businesses more predictive. Hence, our company called Predictive Healthcare, which has been around now for a couple of years and has run a bunch of cycles on quite a few health technology startups, which is pretty cool. So there are outcomes that we have to achieve as we run our healthcare businesses. These are some of them, and these are some of the ways AI can lean in and help in a safe and compliant way without risking exposure to PHI or any other regulatory concerns that are serious and must be taken with absolute flawless execution. So our true north is around transformative care. There's so much great science that is just absolutely exploding across all sectors. So much of it is AI infused. And those pipelines are going to all hit right at the FDA and our regulatory bodies, and they're going to slow down. There are things you can do pre-market, to prepare for launch, to engage communities, to activate patient groups, to activate physician groups and influencers, to get people excited, and then to start to drive that excitement towards the regulatory organizations and get them moving faster. So our whole true north is to bring these breakthrough transformative care things to market, to maximize access, to reduce suffering in the world, and reduce the cost of care for more people. One thing that I personally love is talking directly to patients and talking directly to physicians. And it's incredible to me the enormous amount of suffering that is still happening in the United States and around the world, whether in the pain category, whether in the cardiology category, the derm category, rheum, neuro. There is an enormous amount of patients that are being left behind or can't get their appointments or can't get access to the care that exists today. And it's frustrating, right? So the whole point of all of our work in this webinar and what we do at Predictive Healthcare and in the operating system of HealthFounderOS is to try to accelerate and get that care to market. AI only matters if it can produce outcomes. There has to be clear KPIs that we're aiming at: revenue lift, market share gains, faster launch readiness, reduced agency fees, right? Higher profitability, script lift, more qualified leads, lower wasted impressions, faster organizational learnings. These are all the domains of having that second brain, the digital twin that you're experimenting with, that I'm experimenting with. Everyone now is sort of having a crazy time learning how to use their Hermes and their Claudes and their Grokbots now, which are completely incredible. But anyway, aim at those KPIs as you're thinking about the discovery, as you're reflecting on your business and what it means. I did a quick last 30 days scrape of what are some revenue and share and lift stories that are happening on X and around the web. And indeed, there are many case studies coming in now of improvements to lift, to response rates, to obviously reduce costs, to more capabilities. But I think the biggest one that I hear very consistently now as I talk to folks around the industry is keeping headcount the same. In other words, there'll be a commercial organization, marketing organization that can say, look, with 3 or 4 people, we now can do the work of 10 people or maybe even 100 people as they get into delegating to large agent swarms. But keeping headcount the same works on the marketing side. It doesn't necessarily work on the sales side. The sales side is human to human. There has to be constant relationship building, influence, and trust. That sales piece, I don't think is going to go away, even though we acknowledge over the last decade or two that sales forces in pharma have been right-sized and decreased. Got it. But there's got to be human-to-human contact in healthcare. Nurses and doctors and sales representatives making eye contact, helping to educate and helping communities to form consensus and agreement and alignment that these new breakthrough therapies are the ones to try, to see the results, and then to use on other patients and scale up. The value in AI is going to be in recursive self-improvement. Everybody now has heard that over and over and over. And so we're talking about building the single brain. We're talking about the digital twin. And how does that happen, right? It ain't that hard, right? It is very easy now to have a Slack channel where you're piping in your Hermes, piping in your Grokbot, your Claude. All the team members now can then query the LLMs, work from the same output. You have one source of truth, one legal opinion, one plan, one call plan, one target list, one media plan. It's incredibly refreshing because on the other side of that, there's a lot of friction and drift if there are 5 different people LLMing a bunch of different plans and scenarios that ultimately creates the drift. So we're talking about a centralized brain that can be built and over time and fed with the knowledge and expertise and learning loops. And especially as the launch takes place, as data is now coming into that single brain, so that brain is now the brain has now become your analyst, right? It's looking at leads coming in, it's looking at click-through rates, it's looking at engagement, looking at points of drop-off in the funnel, looking at the handoff between marketing to sales, and it's looking at meetings that are scheduled and where meetings are kept or where people drop out and do not attend their sales meetings, all the way through then to conversion, and then through care processes, all the way through then to adherence and into loyalty and into resell, cross-sell, if that's a part of your care plan. But essentially that whole value chain needs to be audited, mapped into what is the customer journey, aligned with your data and your analytics, and then your AI use cases mapped to that. And then those are the applications that we're going to talk a lot about, is build out those algorithms to make your company more predictive, which is one of our key themes here. So let's keep going here. So distributed LLMs can create speed, right? So you have your Claude, you're just pounding out an enormous amount of slop, but the governed harness creates the alignment. And so we're moving from a lot of people with superpowers to governed alignment around that one brain. And that is essential to get away from essentially AI slop, which you can actually control with your own prompts, having the right context, the right business rules, the right approval gates, the right legal compliance bots reviewing and auditing everything before everything goes out to make sure that all of our messaging is consistent and approved, that there is clear ownership all the way up to the C-suite and the board of directors, and all the working teams now are aligned around that one brain. And so that's a no-brainer, right? Forgive the pun. Okay, we've talked about the single brain as the memory layer for commercial growth. I think we've covered that pretty well. And then we've talked about where AI can create those commercial outcomes. The intelligence layer, obviously, I run the last 30 days bot all the time on almost everything, on myself, on competitors, on different market sectors, because you get an immediate scrape of what's happening in that particular sector, and exactly what's happening to your positioning and competitive entrance and your messaging and your uptake. You can make better insights as you look at performance data coming in. The second is better targeting. So this is a clear winner now in healthcare for AI, which is just looking at segmentation, looking at targeting, combining data sets, like on the physician side, combining prescribing information and deciles, rep access, engagement with digital touchpoints like email opens or clicking on addressable media, attending peer-to-peer meetings, attending and signing in at booths at events. All those things then feed attribution models, which help us get a sense of who's the most valuable target, what are they interested in, and then feeding that to the sales team. So the marketing role and the internet as the most, amazing the most amazing direct response solution ever invented, now is feeding those insights back to your sales team, and that's a huge deal. The third is around launch and launch planning and execution, having one plan, running scenarios against simulated audiences, doing a much better job of predicting where the competitors are going to be, what are the competitors spending, what is the total impression share of voice, share of mind, share of wallet, and just having a better sense of, is this launch going to work, or is it going to be soft or flabby, or have I left anything out? So you can really interrogate your launch plans against benchmarks and have, frankly, a predictive score on whether that launch is going to succeed or not. As many on this audience knows, and I've been on a bunch of launches, you guys have too, sometimes they just absolutely fail. And it is so disappointing. You'll see a company spend $50 million or $100 million, and the uptake is not where people or management wants it to be. Meanwhile, there's some launches that just nail it. The execution is flawless, and that brand is taken off into a multi-$100 million asset and on its way to blockbuster status, relatively quickly. So launches can work, and sometimes they don't, right? And the question is why. And so a lot of our interrogation of our case studies and use cases and our experience and time in the market gives us a sense for why a launch will work, or just, look, it's just going to be a bust. We screwed it up, right? That is unfortunate, but it does happen. Field force and sales productivity is a phenomenal area for AI. It's just such a no-brainer, aligning your call plan against prioritized physician lists or influencers you've got to reach, or KOLs got to reach, looking at sales productivity and all the great data that comes back from sales reps and their engagement, especially through digital devices. And that's a whole another lecture. Because it's a whole nother HealthFounderOS we'll cover maybe next time. But physician, field force, and the theme that I'm going to keep developing here is marketing continuously is going to be more agentified, more automated, more of the marketing loops, the strategy, the landscape, the positioning, the messaging, creative orchestration, dynamic creative, analytics reporting. All those things are very repeatable and more agentic. So marketing is going to become more automated, whereas sales really is the point of the spear. It is so essential and powerful and important, cannot be overlooked, cannot be belittled. You have to have humans out there talking to other humans to make eye contact and build trust. So I'm bullish on sales and the alignment with smarter, faster marketing solutions. We'll keep going on that topic. All right, we've talked about lots of unidentified opportunities, and I think we've drained this a lot, which is around launch barriers, physician segmentation, search behavior, competitive activity, patient questions and barriers. It's fun, thinking back to all the adherence work we've done over the years. I'm actually gonna go back 10 years when I worked on Lantus. We did a huge amount of research on why these patients would not take their insulin. And it came down to a list of like 50 compliance and persistence barriers. I felt better, so I stopped taking my medication. I felt worse, so I stopped taking my medication. The medication was too expensive. I forgot to pick it up. I got busy. There's an enormous amount of emotional and rational barriers that people come up with to, not maliciously, but they just don't take their medicine, right? And we know that adherence is a huge problem. And so, we're eager to work on that topic with some of our new AI tools coming out. Targeting and prioritizing with greater precision is the second big theme I want to hit today. And so we know that AI can improve targeting by connecting with a bunch of data sets, right? Physician behavior, account potential, referral sources, messaging relevance to that doctor. Have they been engaging with that type of content? Engagement history, patient need, access barriers, timing signals, and then all that feeds into next best action logic. So that is the orchestration layer that is so important for omni-channel operations, which is the customer data platform tied to the CDP, tied to personalization engines, tied to next best action, And how does all that get crafted and written into business rules so that those machines can be built and operated with precision? So that's a pretty cool layer. Executing launch and campaign work faster is the third big area for AI to help accelerate launch planning, scenario modeling, as we've discussed, compliant content, adaptation, sales enablement, market segmentation, campaign strategy, objection handling. All these things are made faster and smarter. One thing, it makes me think about, having just run some cycles in this area is be very careful what you upload into the LLMs. So I personally work off of a Mac Mini. I have closed cloud services like with Grokbot, but my sense is that they are secure. They're not going to be hacked. They're safe, right? Versus submitting your stuff onto a Claude, which immediately then goes back up into this big brain. You don't know where that data is going. And obviously you can't put PHI or anything related to patient care in your Claude, because that obviously is a HIPAA compliance point of failure. But the point is, though, is that there has to be careful thinking through of what brain are you using, and what are you uploading it, and then what are you getting out, so that you have a sense of pattern recognition, as a seasoned veteran, to say, yeah, that looked pretty good, or nah, looks like crap, I'm not going to use that, it just totally missed the mark. But I think having time and industry matters, and so that's a bid to attract and retain great people that have been doing this for a long time. The fourth big area of AI is around creating new levels of field and sales performance. So we've been talking about this a little bit already. Preparing faster preparation for calls, understanding and profiling the physicians you're going to be talking to, prioritizing the best opportunities, improving follow-up quality, follow-up speed, getting back to responding to physicians that are talking to you. So understanding account context is also important. And then personalizing outreach safety matters. Reducing administrative burden matters. Identifying stalled opportunities. All those things are part of the sales playbook and are pretty exciting areas of AI solutioning. Measuring, learning, and scaling what works. So there's so much to be done with the analytics. There are so many great companies. There's several that come to mind, like Customer Insights.ai. It's great, incredible offering. They have a bunch of apps that align with every single part of the biotech enterprise that then bring incredible advanced analytics to solve specific problems like Salesforce optimization, marketing mix optimization, segmentation, targeting, all kinds of things that are important. And so we're interrogating the outcome of those analytics solutions to say, what has changed? What created the lift? What reduced the leakage in our empty bucket or our lead funnel? What should we scale? What worked? What improved conversion? Things of that nature. So, we're cranking along here. The bottom line here is the company that learns faster wins, right? So we know that our client experience and continuous research, continuous learning is essential to consolidate knowledge faster, to acquire market intelligence faster, to see the patterns coming in quicker, avoiding repeating the same mistakes, or if you make a mistake, don't make that mistake again, and just improving performance. So speed is associated with learning. You'll recall that one of the most important, and maybe the most important, strategy planning tool is the learning plan, which we've developed many over the last 2 decades. But it really maps out all the strategy questions, which is, who's the target? Which are the most valuable ones? Where do we reach and engage them? What do we say to them? How are we going to measure it? And frankly, that learning plan maps with the classic commercialization strategy planning process. Who, what, where, how. Those are all the right questions, and they get fed into the learning skills as we go. One of the most important things that we've talked about today was the notion of having your teammates with these superhero powers that now fail to come together, right? It causes drift. There are multiple plans, multiple legal opinions. There are differences of opinion among the expert pool on the team. And so having that shared vision and a shared sense of purpose is key. So go through those North Star exercises, be really clear on what we're trying to accomplish as a team from a care standpoint, and also what part of traditional commercial are we going to do, what part of, let's call it even traditional machine learning, and then what part of advanced AI, where do we feel comfortable to start building cycles around one single brain. So we're, the question, this is meaningful, right? What are you trying to build? Where are you trying to grow? What opportunities may be hidden? Where is the team moving too slowly? Things of that nature, right? Where can AI safely be leveraged? So when we do a discovery session with our clients and our partners, we're asking what seemed like obvious questions, but when you really dig in and when you really try to develop a shared sense of where all this is going, there's a lot of divergence that's just right out of the gate. Everybody has so many different experiences with AI, whether good or bad, or different trust and risk tolerance with AI. It really comes down to a leadership moment for the team to come together, to have a shared vision, have a shared narrative where we're going, appreciate a now, near, far plan, to really start to figure out where AI can make an important difference in the outcomes of the company and for access to patients. So we're going to kind of wrap here in a minute. Thanks for sticking with me. My role in all this has been to lead the dialogue and to help prioritize these mutual opportunities. So when I will work with a client or help engage, or we kick off our discovery with a new scope of work, we're going to ask these foundational questions. Some of them are just vision and North Star oriented. Many of them then go to the, who are we talking to? How are we going to reach them? Where are we going to reach them? What are we going to say to them? How are we going to measure it? What are the data and technology apps that we want to put in place to bring this to life? So to me, it is the most fun and the most exciting time you could probably ever be in healthcare commercialization. I did start out in the late 90s. And then since the .com era and into the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, it's been an incredible ride to now come to this next level of technology and the next level of sort of leadership without easy answers, right? And so, super fun. My bid here is to invite everyone into the process. Please come check out HealthFounderOS. Our role is to start with one workflow, map it out end to end from a journey perspective, learn how to govern that workflow, learn how to apply AI use cases safely, compliantly, prove the value, scale what works. There's also a lot of discussion on building edge cases. So in other words, don't try to transform the whole company. Don't kill the golden goose. Don't hurt your main revenue engine, but start an edge case, which is an AI pilot that is on the edge, where you literally run it in parallel to one of the core solutions in the healthcare business, and then just look at the results. Did you get more lift? Did that result come faster? Did it come with less effort? Did you save money? Did it have a higher ROI? And when that happens, and there's comfort and familiarity, and you've QC'd it, and the compliance checks all come back green light, then now you can begin to do the organizational change or the change management to bring that AI use case into the organization. I think that makes a lot of sense. We're mapping this out in our case studies on HealthFounderOS and in our live ebook that we update continuously as we learn from our clients that are coming in, that are going through these cases. So the discovery process is about finding the right mix of the people, the process, the technology, which is classic transformation discussion. And now it's a matter of, within the commercial context, within the business context, what are the AI use cases on the edge we can do to prove the value and then bring that back in safely and compliantly. So, okay, so we're eager to have those conversations to help get you to a governed commercial AI operating system. That's where all this is headed. It is inevitable. AI is going to keep creeping in, and there will be disruptions that are going to be incredibly profound. Let's just take one, for example. In 3 or 4 or 5 years, there may be incredible robotics that can perform surgeries on par with, or maybe even better than humans. So what happens if the robot surgeon is drawing from the LLMs and wants to appreciate and draw from what are the best other kinds of care that needs to go with that surgery, whether it's pre-op, it is during surgery, whether it's post-op recovery, whether it is in relationship to other chronic illnesses that need to be taken into account. The big brain is going to be sorting all of that out and algorithmically making predictions back to that governing physician that will be overseeing this process. So what does that mean for visibility if you're in that space? How do you get noticed? How does your treatment or diagnostic or cell therapy or OTC, get noticed and get appreciated and brought up into that system, where there may be more robotic or agentic capabilities making those decisions? That is a huge part of appreciating that what we're building, whether it's the website, the search, the copy that will be spidered and read by the LLMs, or the product itself, has to be built at a literacy level that is right for the patient, that is right for the physician, but also right for the LLM. The agents have to be able to interrogate and appreciate all the science and complexity and validation and trust and influence that's happening in and around your breakthrough therapy. And so that's a little bit of stakeholder mapping, but we can't forget that the literacy has to be calibrated for patients, for doctors, for influencers, for scientific community, and obviously now for our new agentic friends that seem to be popping up everywhere. So I think that's got to be enough for today. Very much appreciate everyone hanging with me for this 32-minute webinar. We're excited to learn faster, align faster, escalate faster, protect the trust, prove the value, scale what works, and do all this in a safe and compliant way that just gets our building blocks in place as markets get more competitive and maybe potentially more confusing as we get into agentic life going forward. Thanks so much for joining us on HealthFounderOS number 3. My name is Croom Lawrence. I hope you will like and subscribe, and please give me a call if you have any questions or want to discuss any of the content from today. Okay, good luck, everybody. Talk to you soon.